Now, let's talk about guilt because that's an interesting emotion as well. Guilt is often confused with shame, but they are not the same thing. Like I explained with shame, shame says, I am bad, but guilt says, I did something bad. One attacks your identity, and the other just reflects on your behavior, right? And here's the key to that: guilt, when healthily expressed, can actually be very useful to you. It can act as your compass, guiding you back into alignment with your own values, right? Because you feel guilty when you went against your values. But when guilt lingers and when guilt stays stuck within you too long, when it's misplaced or chronic, it becomes just as toxic as shame. So, guilt shows up when you believe that you have harmed someone or disappointed someone or fallen short of what you should be doing, right? When you do the opposite of what you should be doing. It can be tied to real actions, but a lot of the time, guilt is actually tied to perceived expectations. And that's why so many women, especially, live with constant guilt. Guilt for resting, guilt for saying no, guilt for not being everything to everyone all the time, not being able to save everyone, not being able to help everyone, right? That's not real moral guilt. That's conditioned guilt. That's patriarchy, culture, and people pleasing in disguise again. So, what you basically need to understand is that not all guilt belongs to you. Sometimes you are carrying guilt that was projected onto you by parents, by your friends, by your partners, by religious systems, or even just society. And if you don't learn to question it, you will mistake someone else's expectations for your own moral compass. So let's break this down. First, I want to get into what healthy guilt is versus what unhealthy guilt is. Healthy guilt happens when you genuinely betray your own values. So maybe you lied, maybe you hurt someone intentionally or carelessly, right? That pang of guilt is your body's way of saying, this isn't who I want to be. Plain and simple. That's it. When you take accountability, apologize, make amends, and realign your actions, so do better, be better, the guilt resolves. The guilt goes away, right? You processed it, you changed it, you transformed it. Unhealthy guilt, however, is the one that lingers no matter what. It's guilt for saying no when you need to rest. It's the guilt for prioritizing yourself. It's the guilt for setting boundaries. It's the guilt for speaking up to yourself for yourself and the other person doesn't like it. That's not about you doing something wrong. It's about you believing that you don't have the right to honor your own needs and to prioritize yourself and to choose yourself, even when it makes the other person uncomfortable or mad or creates conflict, right? That's when guilt becomes your poison because you mistake actual guilt for people pleasing, for societal conditioning, for peer pressure. So, how do you alchemize guilt? Well, the first step, as usual, ask, does this guilt align with my values or with someone else's expectations? If you genuinely crossed a line that matters to you, you need to own it. You need to take responsibility, you need to apologize, you need to learn, you need to change. That's how you transform guilt into growth. But if the guilt is because you said no to someone, or because someone didn't like your choice, or because you dared to choose yourself, recognize that as false guilt, as fake guilt. That's just programming. That's not your actual truth. Okay? Step two is take action. So you cannot think your way out of guilt, just like you cannot think your way out of all of these other emotions. If your guilt is tied to an action that you regret, go fix it. Say sorry, repair the harm, and then let it go. If it was so bad that sorry is not enough, either they give you one more chance and you accept it and you do better. If it was too much, you need to accept that as well. You need to repair the harm for yourself. And then you still need to let it go. If it's false guilt, then your action is continuing to set boundaries anyway. Every time you stand firm, the guilt lessens, right? Because your nervous system just learns that I can survive disappointing someone. You can hold that. You are able to hold that. Then you need to reframe guilt into responsibility and not punishment. So when you live in chronic guilt, you're always punishing yourself. It's like shame, right? You keep punishing yourself mentally. But guilt isn't meant to be a lifelong sentence. It's meant to just redirect you. It's just meant to shift you where you did not right, not to imprison you, right? Not to punish you for life. So instead of oh, I'm a terrible person for doing this. I'm this horrible human being. I'm such a bad friend. All of this negative self-talk. You need to just tell yourself that action was out of alignment. That action was not all right. That action was wrong. What I did was wrong. But I can choose differently next time. I can learn from it and do better next time. Subtle shift, but a huge difference. Now, do not let guilt become your master, like every other emotion, because if you do, you will live your whole life controlled by the fear of disappointing people, and that just results in people pleasing again and making yourself small again and not being true to yourself again. You will never take risks, you will never set boundaries, you will never choose yourself, you will never expand into who you're meant to be. You will never be truly you. Guilt unchecked will keep you small and obedient and resentful afterwards because you kept not choosing yourself. And one more thing, guilt is also often weaponized. People will project guilt onto you just to control you. If you really loved me, you would do this. How could you put yourself before your family? That is so selfish. How could you put yourself before me? That is so selfish. You didn't think of that other person first. That's not love. We've all heard these, some kind of way, shape, or form of these statements. That's not love, that's manipulation. When you start to recognize that, you reclaim your power. That's the moment that your power comes back. Of course, there's very much nuance to it because it could be that you were selfish, and it could be that you were a shitty friend, and it could be that you did something that didn't explain the love for that person, right? That kind of made them feel the opposite. So take it with a grain of salt. They could be right, but most of the time, it's not love, it's just manipulation. It's just a projection of them. And at the end of the day, guilt's purpose is to shine light on your alignment with your values. That's it. So feel it, examine it, act accordingly, and then let it go. You don't need to carry it on forever like a label, right? So you are allowed to forgive yourself. You are allowed to be human. You are allowed to learn and grow without dragging your past mistakes like chains behind you. Because we're all human. We all make mistakes. We all hurt people. It's about whether you learn from it and do better next time. Guilt is only useful when it transforms you, not when it destroys you.